What's up, everyone? This is Maximilian bringing you Day 4 of the Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 Breakdown. Today, we're going to discuss and speculate over the 4 remaining Marvel characters that were announced for Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3.
Stars.
No, Nemesis, get out of here. You were in the last video.
Stars.
First up is what many consider to be a Marvel classic, Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is an interesting but almost perfect addition for the Marvel vs. Capcom universe. Aside from his long-running history in Marvel Comics since the 1960s, Doctor Strange hasn't had many representations in games other than brief cameos, showing up in several titles including Marvel Superheroes War of the Gems, Ultimate Alliance, and Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions. Not to mention, he was also briefly in Shenko's ending at the end of the original Marvel vs. Capcom 3. But what does this mean about the character in the game, you ask? Well, it means that Capcom has a very wide liberty of freedom when designing Doctor Strange's playstyle. He's an avid user of the dark magic arts, and that gives him the ability to do almost anything. From summoning several different elements, to flight, to projectiles, the variety this character has is extremely wide. So I'm pretty excited to see how Doctor Strange is going to appear in a fully fleshed out, character-driven fighting game. And with that, Doctor Strange and his voodoo magic get an 8 out of 10 on my personal hype meter. Up next is one of the more shocking inclusions to Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Daniel Rand, aka Iron Fist, from Marvel Comics. Okay, so here we go. Brutal honesty time. When the character images were first dropping for Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, I saw Iron Fist and it was one of those characters where I didn't exactly know who he was. I knew he looked familiar in some way, shape, or form, and he looked like a character that's been around for a while, but I couldn't put the name to it. And once again, you can blame this on my ignorance towards the history of past Marvel comics and only following the 90s Jim Lee X-Men. But when I started learning more about Iron Fist, I actually started to get pretty excited. And holy crap, it's another one of those situations where this character already is in Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Well, technically, he's actually in Ryu's ending of the game, where he goes toe-to-toe with Iron Fist testing each other's strength. Iron Fist is a martial arts fighter that uses his inner energy known as Chi to increase his natural abilities. Things like reflexes, durability, agility, strength, speed, and stamina. So I've got this funny feeling that Iron Fist is going to be kind of a slow but heavy hitter in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. So, Iron Fist and his I know Kung Fu get a 9 out of 10 on my personal hype meter. Up next is a character I'd never even heard of before until I saw him in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Nova from Marvel Comics. So I kinda wanna judge what everyone thinks about Nova being in this game, especially because I have no knowledge and history of this character. Leave a comment below if you know Nova and you're completely appalled that I don't know who Nova is, or leave another comment if you don't know who Nova is as well. But putting my own personal comic book education aside, I'm kind of looking forward to Nova now that I'm reading more about him. Like a few of the characters we've already discussed, Nova is another unique character that has not had much representation in video games or even moving media. From what I understand, Nova is a regular guy who draws power from something called the Nova Force and appears to be an intergalactic hero that flies around in a badass spacesuit. Either way, he's going to be kind of similar to Doctor Strange in the sense that they're going to be giving a lot of freedom to move around with this character and his moves and abilities. So based off that, with no reference and no idea what Nova's going to be like in the game, he gets a 6 out of 10 on my personal hype meter. Up next is perhaps the most shocking character inclusion ever in a Capcom game. A character from Star Fox is going to be in the Versus game. I'm so excited about this because it pretty much almost guarantees that Mega Man is going to be in the next Smash Brothers game. I mean, can you even imagine? What? He's not from Star Fox? Then who the hell is he?
Star Fox?
No, Nemesis, it's not Star Fox. Well, all jokes aside, it's Rocket Raccoon. It's Rocket Raccoon, folks! Yay, Rocket Raccoon! I don't know who this is still. Yeah, I'm pretty bad at this. So looking at Rocket Raccoon, he's essentially a regular raccoon who's an intergalactic space pilot who loves heavy weapons and touts 2 lasers everywhere he goes. So, as much as this already does resemble other familiar characters, Rocket Raccoon scares me. Thinking of the fact that he's a heavy weapons specialist, I'm immediately thinking he's a small character and he's going to be a distance fighter. And then I'm also immediately reminded of something very special I heard during EVO, that Strider is not the character we all should be worrying about in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 about being the new top tier. That there's someone else in this roster we should be concerned about, and I think we're looking at him right now. You can agree with me or you can completely disagree with me, but one of the first things I thought of when I saw what Rocket Raccoon does in the comics is a very special phrase to certain players, and that phrase is Air Hyper Viper Beam. So with that being said, Rocket Raccoon and his cable-like attributes get him a 9 out of 10 on my personal hype meter. So that's going to wrap up the entire roster for Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. But there's one last thing I really wanted to touch basis on before we go. There seems to be a lot of animosity growing around the internet towards Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and the fact that it even exists. Many folks are questioning why wasn't this in the original package of Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Some feel cheated or even extremely upset that they paid for the alpha version of Marvel vs. Capcom with the original package. But first off, I just want to say, everyone is entitled to their opinion, and I understand where you guys are coming from. But there's one thing you need to realize about the original release of Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and it's that the game was announced barely a year before the actual game's release. The fact that we're sitting here discussing the second release of a Marvel vs. Capcom 3 game is kind of blowing my mind. Considering when the game was announced early in 2010, I was shocked to realize that they wanted to release UMVC3 in February. Now we're getting a practical sequel with new characters and a ton that have never ever been featured in a game before? It seems completely ludicrous to me, but in a really good way. To be honest, the more fighting games the better. This could just be nostalgia talking, but there was a moment there in fighting game fan history where we waited 8 years for another Street Fighter game to be announced. In my opinion, if they want to keep making fighting games, I'll keep playing them and I'll keep buying them. If you happen to agree with me, go ahead and let me know in the comments, but if you disagree with me, feel free to share your opinion as well. Thanks for watching, everyone, and be sure to tune in next week where I'll be debuting one video daily featuring and covering Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 live footage from Evolution 2011, where I analyze the characters and the brand new fighting system now that I've gotten my hands on it. After that, I'll be debuting a brand new Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 Breakdown video where we analyze in detail all the balance changes and new moves given to the previous roster of characters in Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Until then, see you next time, everyone.
Can Nemesis spend the night?